This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
Well, more draws than a bedside cabinet since the last podcast. 3 games in 6 days yielded just 3 points in a run that may prove to be too much to overcome if there's any hope of Manchester City remaining in the title race this season. You maybe don't expect Arsenal to go unbeaten between now and the end of May, but do you trust City to get the job done in the meantime? It's bigger picture discussion time on today's Blue Moon podcast as we reflect on the stalemates with Sunderland, Chelsea and Brighton. How much of injuries and fatigue played their part in the last week? Could there or should there have been more rotation in the starting 11 in the months before? Or is this team still lacking the killer instinct either way? But now Premier League woes can be set aside for the week as focus shifts to the domestic cups. We'll hear from John from the Big Bank podcast all about Exeter City. And since it's the first time the two sides have ever met, football historian Gary James talks us through the other occasions where the FA Cup has given us some one-off ties. So then, no putting it off, it's post-mortem time. I'm David Mooney, and donning their scrubs, scalpels in hand, we've got City fan Adam Monk.
Hello, hello, hello.
And for the BBC's football correspondent, John Murray. Hi, John.
Hello.
So, yes, we begin the post-mortem with Brighton, Chelsea and Sunderland. John, at the moment, where do you think these 3 games have left the title race?
Well, listen, Sunderland was a brilliant match. I really enjoyed it and was quite surprised, actually, that some I spoke to in the aftermath of that match were quite downbeat about it. But I thought it was a real thriller. And I think I'm right in saying, was it 53 touches in the Sunderland penalty area that Manchester City had? And, if that match is played, 20 times, City win it 19 times. It was one of those, and that is a very difficult place to go to. Then the Chelsea match, of course, there's overwhelming expectation that Manchester City are going to win that because of what has happened at Chelsea over the course of the last week or so, which is a dangerous situation to be in, and obviously proved to be so. And then Brighton again. City could easily have won that match, although, of course, they could have lost it as well.
Yeah, it's one of them where Adam, I'm not sure, having watched the Brighton game, if I'm relieved that Brighton didn't take their chances or annoyed City didn't take theirs.
Yeah, look, I mean, in the way the title race, which is what you first asked, David, I think it's pretty much dead in the water now. And I'm not usually this pessimistic, but I think Arsenal are too difficult to beat. So I think we're still going to drop more points and we'll come onto the rotation, all that thereof. And I think we've been the highest pressing side in the league this season up to this point. That is now pretty telling, I think. And I agree with John, re the Sunderland game. I think that on 99 times out of 100, Doku puts that in, or, Haaland gets on the end of one of those balls, or Bernardo Silva's just onside. That was one of those days.
The Claudio chance at the end where he was dancing and dancing and dancing, but couldn't find the shot, yeah.
Yeah, the Vardiol chance as well. Chelsea and Brighton was a different story to me, where there was negligence in periods of the games from certain players. Lapses in concentration, complacency, a touch of arrogance as well, I would say. So the mood has slightly shifted for me after the last 2 home games. And I'm sure City will pick themselves back up. But I think given how formidable Arsenal are defensively, I think it already might be too little too late. And I think all Arsenal might need to do now is not lose when they come here. So that's where I'm pretty much at the moment.
Yeah, I would say not in the most optimistic of places I've ever seen you in. But let's we'll kind of come back to that. John, just on Arsenal, I said in the intro, you don't see them going between now and the end of the season winning every game. Do you think City have got it in them at the minute to be able to capitalise when and if and when Arsenal do drop points?
Is a great question because of the injuries, and we're not entirely sure, are we, where City are with those injuries and how long it'll be before, I don't know, Ruben Dias comes back, and how many weeks, months it'll be for Gvardiol, whether we'll see John Stones again or not. So therefore that is clearly going to be a big challenge for them, and judging by how Guardiola was on Sunday night, that's a big concern for them. He had that written all over him that he's also wondering whether they're going to have the necessary personnel that it takes. So therefore, I think January will clearly be interesting in terms of what happens there. But I wouldn't be so downbeat. And I know that as we speak now, if Arsenal are able to beat Liverpool this evening, then that would be the biggest lead that they've had at the top of the Premier League all season. But all the way through with Arsenal, I've felt that there is the pressure element that they will face trying to win the league for the first time since 2004, and the effect that it has on them. But they're also in the best position they've been in recent years to actually go on and do it. So I wouldn't, if I was City, I certainly wouldn't be giving up hope at this stage.
Adam, the Chelsea Brighton game that you didn't like, what was it more? Was it the giving up of the goal in that Chelsea? I mean, it was last minute, no time to recover from it. Brighton equalised a lot earlier than Chelsea did, and there was an opportunity or a couple of opportunities after it for City to have gone back in front. But at the same time, City have created a lot in those games, or certainly Chelsea, they didn't create the final chance, but they had the moment to kind of square it to Haaland, didn't find that pass, or like play somebody in and just not quite find the right ball. Is the bigger problem at the minute the lack of clinicality, the fact that they're not finishing these chances?
It was last night against Brighton, definitely. Okay, Bernardo Silva squares that or puts it in himself, and it's 2-0. Haaland scores one of those chances, or particularly the one in the second half. I think it's 2-1. We should have won that game. But what I will say, from having watched Pep every home game for the last 8-9 years, this is the least principled iteration of his side that has ever existed. And I think some of that falls on his head. So I think that we have the talent right now, perhaps not the depth of squad that we had in 2018, 2019, but ultimately what City used to be able to do is they used to take a lead in a game against any opposition in the league and win the game 1-0 by keeping the ball. And I think that at the moment, with maybe the profile of personnel in the team, maybe what Pep is telling them, maybe what Pep Linda's effect has been, there's players taking unnecessary risks in certain areas of the pitch, players not releasing the ball quick enough, players not... Cherki would be the one I would single out in this instance, and I think it was more telling against Chelsea. I also think there was instances when he came on yesterday where he played lazy passes to Doku that just didn't reach him when he didn't even need to hit a long ball the way he did. We used to have players, maybe it was a younger Bernardo Silva, maybe it was even Kovacic 3 years ago. It certainly used to be David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, Gundogan, players who would be in that middle of the park and would be able to smother teams high up the pitch, but also drop off and keep possession for literally 10 minutes of the game. And that is something that doesn't exist anymore. So City suffer turnovers at a canter, whether they're creating chances or not. And that's what happened. It happened in the Sunderland game even. Sunderland could have, on a couple of occasions got in behind, and they did. Chelsea obviously capitalised, Brighton capitalised, but it's happened in other games this season previously, at the Emirates, for example, where it was one long ball over the top, a lapse in concentration, 94 minutes in, and we gave that game away. We're a lot worse now at seeing games out, and City used to do that with the ball. They're no longer doing that. So yeah, obviously, look, you can single out chances, and that happens. That will always happen, no matter who's in charge. Players will miss chances. But I think in terms of the core principles that we're implementing when we go out on that pitch at the moment, there's a lot of cutting corners from certain individuals, and it doesn't seem to me like everyone is on the same page at the moment.
Yes, I think there have been times where, when I've sat and watched them, sat and commentated on them, you're always conscious of the fact, because it wasn't that long ago, how good a team that was. The side that won the Champions League and won the league 4 years in a row. And obviously there has had to be a change, and they are going through that change. But, I think back to the time in the autumn when there was that week when they won well against Borussia Dortmund, who were a good team, played well that night, and then beat Liverpool 3-0 the following weekend. And Pep Guardiola, if you remember, was very upbeat after that. And, the impression there was that we are getting there. We are getting there. And I remember thinking at the time, does he really believe this? Or is he saying this in the hope that, it will also have an effect, because it's Guardiola who's saying this. And I noticed that at the weekend again, he was harking back to the work that they did at the FIFA Club World Cup last summer. And he's spoken about that a lot, hasn't he, this season, about how important that was for them. And that's what has got them pointing in the right direction. And listen, we just don't know, do we, at this stage, how good this team is actually going to turn out to be. We're still finding out, and it's a work in progress.
It's definitely that. And as you say, John, as well before, I've got some numbers here. They've 12 outfield players have made 22 or more appearances this season. After 20 games in previous years, he'd made an average of 53 changes to his starting lineup. This season, it was 36 after 20 games. So there's been so many fewer changes to his starting 11. Roll that forward one more game, it's 41 changes after 21. And now you look at the players available. Gvardiol's out, Diaz is out for 4 to 5 weeks, and you add to that, Stones, Kovacic, Savinho, Bob, Aït-Nouri and Marmoush are away at the African Cup of Nations. That's 8 long-termish unavailable players there from a squad of 21. You've got 13 available outfield players. They're going to have to just keep going to the well time and time again, and it's starting to show, isn't it?
Yeah, but all of the teams are in this position. Every time I go and watch one of those top teams, it really does feel to me as though it jumps out what a long list of players who are either unavailable or injured that they have. And I think that is the legacy of where we are now with the expanded calendar. I think it's an inevitability unless you have an incredible stroke of luck and your medical team is working absolute miracles that you're going to be in this position, because it is more relentless than it's ever been before, particularly if you are chasing success on all fronts.
Yeah, and Adam, I'm interested where you feel on this, because there's kind of a seesaw here where Guardiola could have made a few changes a bit earlier in the season. You think of that Leverkusen game where he made 10 changes. It meant he had 10 different options there, at least for around about that period. If he'd made 1 or 2 changes there, maybe they don't win as many games as they have done in the interim, but maybe they're fresher now. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the Leverkusen one was an outlier, I think, for Pep's career. I can't remember him doing that too often, particularly in a Champions League game. That's the kind of thing he'd do before we play Rotherham in the FA Cup. It was very, very bizarre. And obviously his thinking will be in line with what we've been saying, and what Pep himself has been saying, that he probably acknowledges he's been playing a near enough repeated 11 throughout the season, and that's going to take its toll eventually. But I think there's different ways you can manage that. I'll pick one player, for example, Rico Lewis. Okay. I don't think he's got a long-term future at City, generally speaking. I think he'll eventually move on. He could have moved on in the summer to Nottingham Forest. We decided to keep him. If you're going to decide to keep him and make him part of the squad, you've got to use him, end of the day. And there's been several instances. You could go in the last month or so, West Ham at home, 3-0 up. Sunderland at home, 3-0 up. Games where we have been cruising, as the scoreline would suggest, and he's not got a sniff, when he really should have done. And that could have been at the expense of any of the players who are now injured or sidelined or fatigued. He could have come on for them. So for me, it's been poor squad management when we've got to 60 minutes and beyond. I don't necessarily mind him playing the same 11, but it's got to be rotated more thoroughly. Yeah, that's what I'd say. Because look, we've seen it before. You go back to that amazing squad in 2018. We went on a 14-game win streak in the league, I think, pretty much playing the same 11 towards the end of the season, and no one got injured. It can be done, but you've also got to remember this squad has got some older heads in it now. Bernardo Silva, players like that. He seems ridiculously rigid, but there's certain play. John Stones is the example, you would say, when maybe he was played into the ground. We obviously know what happened with Rodri. It's almost like we're constantly playing with fire. That's how it feels, doesn't it? Every single match day. And I think Pep feels the same as well. But, it's a bit of it doesn't make much sense to me, because it's, we'd assume Pep knows this. But then the one thing he sort of vehemently stands by is having a small squad. So,
but at the same time, you could argue that a lot of the good feeling this season, the good vibes, have come from the continuity and the fact that they've been winning games. And as John said, the Club World Cup, kind of going back to that point, he's built this team that everybody's now fighting for each other again. And yes, they're now all ultimately knackered, but they've kind of built a spirit that wasn't there last season.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that, and I understand that. I think almost like the pendulum has swung too far from last season. I think he's tried to right so many of the wrongs from last season in terms of creative impetus that he's almost undone some of the things that were good about the previous iterations of Pep Squad, which was that control that I talked about. Obviously, it used to consist of having Jack Grealish, who I was quite critical of on this podcast in years gone by, and other players. But it almost seems now that it's a bit cliche, but we're almost too gung-ho in certain games, and it takes its defensive toll. So I just think, I don't know, it's almost like we need to find a happy medium right now. I think we're almost...
They're still looking for it,
Yeah, too creative and a bit too individualistic right now.
Yeah. John, there is a couple of names that I wanted to chuck at you that I wondered, like Adam said about Rico Lewis could potentially have been used more. They knew the African Cup of Nations was coming. With that in mind, Ryan Nouri and Omar Marmoush, could they have been used a little bit more in the build-up to it?
Yeah, I would certainly say that, and that's something that's jumped out at me, the fact that he has, for whatever reason, been reluctant to do that, just as Adam says similarly with Lewis. I've been thinking exactly the same about Rico Lewis, which is most unlike him, isn't it, really, in that normally if you're with Guardiola, you have his full confidence, don't you? That's part of his brilliance of man management, isn't it? In that he appears to be able to make players have that extra level of belief that probably lesser managers aren't able to do. So I would agree with that. But I think as well, I think he's had the belief that this team were getting there, as I've said, and that's why I think you've seen him be so tetchy and so irritable over the course of these last couple of matches that points have been dropped in the way that they have been.
Yeah. Just on, in terms of the rotation as well, I'm interested on your thoughts, John, when you've watched them in previous games this season. They're obviously building towards something. They're building towards kind of what the next version of City looks like. And this is, as we say, nowhere near the finished article. If, for instance, he does give a little bit of rest to, for example, Mateus Nunes at right back, and he brings Abdulkadir Kusanov in, or he takes Nico O'Reilly out and puts Nathan Ake there, or Ryan Aït-Nouri, it kind of changes the shape of the team. And if he's building towards what this team looks like, does he need the consistency of what the shape is going to be much more than he needs the freshness in the legs?
Probably, yes, because that is the way that he likes it to be. And I think as well, you haven't got to forget what they're up against in Arsenal, because they've got a blend there that I think every other manager would want. They're so strong defensively when it's Gabriel and Saliba, and actually not too far away from that when they have Hincapié or Mosquera, whoever else it happens to be, playing in central defence, or whether they move Timber in there, whether they move Calafiori. And again, that's another thing. The last couple of matches, when you look at the bench that Manchester City have been able to put out, compared to quite regularly now, when you go to Arsenal and look at their substitutes bench, that's where the strength is. However, I still think that there is a question mark in terms of, will they be able to score the weight of goals? And, that's the thing that Manchester City have, obviously, with Haaland. I think while there is Haaland, there is hope for Manchester City, because with him, there is that capability that they will go on the kind of run that they need to put that proper pressure on Arsenal.
Just finally on this week's games, Adam, I just want to get your thoughts on Max Alleyne, because he came back from Watford, absolutely thrown in at the deep end against Brighton. What did you think?
I thought he looked comfortable, as comfortable as he possibly could do in a game like that. I think being thrown into the deep end in a Premier League game is no easy feat. And I think it was a game that probably suited a young centre-half to be at home, particularly that first half. Yeah, he was comfortable on the ball, but, how much can you read into 190 minutes? Because I could have probably looked at a single game from Jemai Simpson-Pusey last season and gone, yeah, well, he's tidy on the ball, and said the same thing. It just so happened that the period last season was we were getting destroyed in transition.
The world was burning, yeah.
Yeah, the world was burning when he was on the pitch. But, I think in in terms of what he will have wanted himself, Max Allain, he couldn't have asked for much more last night. I know he conceded the goal, but I thought he looked comfortable and competent. One thing I would speculate in the way of transfers this window, perhaps we brought him back in mind of maybe using him as part of the Crystal Palace deal. That would not surprise me with Mark Gay. I would not be surprised if he's used in that, because I don't think City often bring players back with the purpose of playing them and making them a part of the team during the season. I can't tell you the last time that's ever happened.
You've thrown me an absolute curveball there now, because I in the back of my mind somewhere, I think he couldn't play for Palace if he were to sign for them in the window.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, because he's played for Watford and City now this season. I think he wouldn't be able to play for another club for the remainder of this season. I'm chucking stuff at the wall here and seeing what sticks from my memory banks. But I think with FIFA registrations, he having represented two clubs, he couldn't represent a third.
You might be right. I know that Martin Demichelis played for Atletico Madrid, then City, and I think he also had a game for Malaga. He did 3, but that'll be different, I reckon, in Spain.
Is that a loan rule?
Oh, it could be. It could be. This is something that, if I'd have known this was going to come, I'd have checked. But it's one of those things that's completely caught me by surprise.
At the end of the day, I'm only speculating as well. But that's that would have been my thinking. But yeah. I thought he did do well.
Yeah, I did want to just worry though a little bit, John, about Allain on the basis that he was doing really well at Watford. He was having it was really good for his development. The Watford fans loved him, the Watford team loved him, and he was playing well. He's obviously come back to help City out of a hole at the moment. Should they go on and sign Mark Gahey this window? Should then Ruben Dias come back available? Where does that leave Allain? Because he's likely then to be sitting on the bench pretty much every week for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, but I think probably he's thinking about the here and now, isn't he? Rather than what might happen. He's thinking about what he has to do right now. And that's what he had to do.
Yeah, and as Adam said, did it very well. So fair play.
You see stats pop up all the time about clubs and players, and you want to know that exact thing about City. There's an answer. Statscity.co.uk. Want to find out all of the players who played alongside club legends like David Silva, Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany? Or maybe you'd like to know which team found it hardest to score past Joe Hart. You can find out City's record in every competition, at every stadium, and under every manager. Just go to statscity.co.uk and browse away. That's statscity.co.uk.
Please give us your backing. Patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
Now let's turn attention to Saturday in the FA Cup, because on Saturday City will play Exeter for the first ever time. There's a select few other clubs that City have only met once, and it's an even more exclusive gang when we take out League Cup and European ties as well. So I've been speaking to the football historian Gary James about the other 6 or 7 teams that City have met only once thanks to the FA Cup.
Yeah, there isn't many, and we sort of spread through City's history as well. They sort of happen every sort of 20 years or maybe more. So there's 5 or 6 that have happened, and I guess the first as Manchester City was against Wigan County in the 1897-1898 season, and Wigan County is not, Wigan Athletic. They played at Springfield Park, but it's not that club. It is a completely different club that played at Springfield Park years before Wigan Athletic existed, and they were a sort of Lancashire League club, so some way below City at the time, and Wigan County saw this as such a big occasion that they went to Lytham St Anne's to do special cup tie training. Now the big clubs used to do that. The big clubs used to go off to Blackpool or Southport or whatever, but Wigan County did this because they felt they could beat Manchester City. We're talking 1897, 1898. City didn't really have much of a reputation, but people like Billy Meredith were there, and they had some star players. And of course, ended up that City won 1-0, and I've managed to get a quote of the goals, and it's worth listening to this. Right, White headed a shot, and Meredith, who was standing with his back to his own goal, wisely allowed the ball to pass between his legs. The ball was in the net before Mackey, the county custodian, quite realised the situation. I mean, it sort of sums everything up, doesn't it?
Yeah, match reports have changed, haven't they, in the 100 and odd years since. I mean, that was played at Hyde Road as well. So most of these are played at Main Road. There's a couple of away games, but this is the only one at Hyde Road.
Yeah, it is, and Hyde Road was a great venue, and so on. And Wigan County, they'd have played maybe reserve games to some extent, or something like that against a Wigan County side. But Wigan County weren't particularly a big club. In fact, I think they'd only just been founded. They were founded in 1897, so they weren't even a year old, and suddenly they're thrust upon playing a second division team as Manchester City, and with Meredith and all these others, and of course Meredith, all he had to do was open his legs and let the ball go for his team.
Yeah. The next one, it's just over 10 years later, in 1909-10 season, they played a team called Workington, who I believe don't exist anymore either. 1-1 at their ground, Ashfield.
Yeah, and this was the original Workington club. So Workington got reformed years later, but this is the sort of original one. And that game, it was City won. Was it 2-1? Yeah, 2-1. And George Wynne, who was a great player for City, scored the first goal in the first half. But the weather was poor, the pitch was frozen in parts, and Workington equalised from a penalty, where City's Bill Eadie, was called, this player of City's, tripped up this Workington player who looked destined to score a goal. So he tripped him up in the penalty area, so penalty was awarded, they equalised, and then in the second half, apparently George Wynne just walked the ball in for the second goal, and that's the report. It just says George Wynne walked the ball in.
Yeah, a nice solo goal to win it. Then, I mean, you waiting 30 odd years then. 36-37, Accrington Stanley came to Main Road. Fred Tilson on the score sheet as well.
Yeah, he scored. It was a header with Fred Tilson, and the other, and that was in the second half. In the first half, it was Peter Doherty who scored, and he was the great star player. And this was, of course, the year City won the title, 1936-37. Whereas Accrington, I think at the time, would have been. Oh, I don't know actually where they would have been, but they were not perceived. They were a league side, but they were not perceived as being a serious threat to City, I guess. However, not long after that, the next season, City played Millwall from the third division. This isn't a one-off. We obviously played Millwall plenty of times, and Millwall beat City. Who were reigning champions. So when you look at it, even the, and we don't say typical City anymore, but unpredictable days certainly existed in the 30s,
Yeah. And then, again, there's another kind of 40-odd year gap. But I was going to say this kind of takes us to the modern era, but it's still 50 years ago. So it's more modern than it's certainly a more modern phase of football than when they were playing Accrington Stanley or Workington. Hartlepool United came to Main Road, and City absolutely took them apart. And then when you look at the list of scorers in that game, you're talking kind of the names that I grew up with, my parents talking about as City legends.
Yeah, and it was quite a controversial game as well. And I do remember the game. I think I was at it. I was only, 7, something like that, 7 or 8. And the big incident that got talked about for days and days after this, in fact weeks I think, was that Dennis Stewart and a guy called George Potter. Dennis was, I think he was fouled whilst he was on the ground. Somebody kicked him or something whilst he was on the ground, I think. And Dennis got up and headbutted George Potter, right? And what made this a really sort of sensational story at the time was that the two of them knew each other from college. We'd had a sort of like a day release type of thing when we were first sort of starting to play football, and they knew each other. And so there's all sorts of different angles to this, and there's lots of stuff in the papers about how, the might of this first division team, and they were using violence and all this sort of stuff against this fourth division team, and City won 6-0, but it ended up that sort of to appease the situation, Tony Buck, and I think Roy Bailey, who's one of City's physios at the time, and Dennis Stewart went to visit George Potter in hospital because he got stretched off and he was taken to hospital. Both players actually got sent off as well. And so there's a picture in one of the newspapers of Dennis Stewart sort of shaking hands with this bloke in his bed who'd been headbutted by Dennis. And then also Dennis wrote a letter to City fans, but he sent it, I think it went to every single member of the Junior Blues, apologising for his behaviour because no professional footballer should behave like that. So it's, the fact that City won 6-0 suddenly got overshadowed by all of this, and I think Alan Oakes scored the opening goal, but it was only like after 6 or 7 minutes. Dennis Stewart scored a couple. Who else scored that day?
I've got Tommy Booth and Asa Hartford, yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, Asa Hartford obviously used to scoring goals, but Tommy Booth, most people think of Tommy Booth as either a sort of defender or maybe a midfielder. And at times during this season, because City had a bit of a crisis, even though we were challenging for a league for part of the season, but City and the League Cup obviously, but City ended up playing, or Tony Buck put Tommy Booth as a centre forward for quite a few games. So Tommy Booth was scoring a few goals that season. Dave Watson did as well. He played as a centre forward at times during that season. So it was one of those strange sort of games where you expect to beat a 4th division club. They're playing at Main Road. You expect to beat them. You beat them 6-0. That's, a bit like Salford last season, whatever. It's what you sort of expect. And then actually, there's this intrigue and this story that goes around, and players stretch it off, and Dennis Stewart, the hero to many, headbutts somebody, and it's like, what's he done now? It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Salford in a second because there's one more that pops up between them. And Guardiola is the only City manager that has 2 of these games already. He's going to add a third on Saturday. They went to Cheltenham Town in the 2021 season, so just after lockdown. And it was a right old battle, that one.
Yeah, and it's one of these things, isn't it? That a bit like Exeter, you sort of want to play away when you're playing these one-off sort of games. When you're playing against some of these teams that you've not faced before, you want it to be away because we're all used to Main Road and we're all used to the Etihad, and I'm guest guys, we're used to Hyde Road, but you want to go away. And the Cheltenham one, we won 3-1. They were a League 2 side, but they got promoted as champions, I think, that year, didn't they? So they certainly were no mugs, if you like. But the difference in class, and it's even resting players and that, you still think it's it's ours, don't you?
Yeah, and then you mentioned Salford last season, Salford City, which obviously has the class of '92 connection. So it was nice that that this one ended with City's biggest ever win in one of these one-off ties, 8-0. James McAtee, the only player to score a hat trick in a one-off tie, but also Nico O'Reilly, who's done well recently, scored his first goal that day.
Yeah, and it's satisfying, isn't it? And, Salford City, if we were playing Hyde United or Stalybridge Celtic or one of the other sort of local teams, it'd be great and it'd be interesting, that. But there's that added edge with it being Salford City in the class of '92, and some people trying to put it across as if it was some sort of major derby match type of game, and it's not, is it? It's important and it's a key game, and it's so easy to lose something like that. But it's Salford, and people talk about obviously buying success and so on. And all of that applies to Salford as much as it may apply to City and some of the other teams that have been successful. Salford City were transformed from what they were, a non-league team, a decent non-league team at times, but a non-league team that didn't really have a chance of league football. And they got transformed by investment, by changing business practices and doing all the sorts of things on a different level, but doing all the sorts of things that City get accused of. In terms of the way the club has been transformed to some extent. But it was satisfying. I was a bit nervous before that game because you just don't know, do you? You just don't know. And that leads on to Exeter, doesn't it? You just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, the magic of the cup and all that. It's it's nice when you're the little team. Suddenly, when you're the big team, and the magic could come and bite you. It's funny though, because City have won every single one of these previous kind of one-off games that they've that they've had against other teams. But right before City existed, the only one that I could find that was for Ardwick was a game against West Manchester in 1894. They lost that one 3-0.
Yeah, and West Manchester were a big side actually. They played at Brooks Bar, Old Trafford sort of area. And if you went back to say 1892 when Ardwick joined the league and United as Newton Heath joined the league, West Manchester were probably at least on a par, maybe even bigger than Ardwick at that time. But they just never applied to join the league. They just, for whatever reason, they just never really applied. I don't know why, obviously, and there's nobody left to ask, is there? But it ended up that West Manchester and Ardwick playing each other, even though Ardwick was second division team, and it was their second season in the league. Ardwick were having a bad time, and it's the year they ended up collapsing, if you like. But they're playing West Manchester, and newspaper reports talk about West Manchester as if they are the bigger club and the more significant club. And the only issue is that Ardwick had joined the league and West Manchester hadn't. It ended up it was 3-0. Ardwick did have a goal disallowed for offside when it was 3-0, but it didn't make a difference. And according to the report, it said the West defence was far too good for them. Melave was City's key sort of star player really at the time. Melave tried one or two long shots, but West retired easy winners. And I think that was it really. So in a sense, I suppose it's good that the only one we've lost is as Ardwick of these. But yeah, it wasn't a sort of giant playing a non-league team or a giant playing a lower division team. It was two teams. One just happened to be in the second division and one just never bothered applying.
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Was that a deliberate 6-7 there, David?
No, it wasn't a deliberate 6-7. It's 6 or 7 because it's 6 as Manchester City, 7 when you include Ardwick. But officially, Ardwick are they're a different club. Officially, Ardwick folded and City were incorporated.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they are officially two different teams. But obviously, it's interesting to talk about a game from 1884. So we did that. So, that was me and Gary James speaking about the one-off cup ties. And, John, while we were listening to that, you've been doing a bit of research. So, what have you found out?
This is regards how many teams you can play for in any given season. And a quick search has told me that under FIFA rules, a player can be registered for a maximum of 3 clubs in one season, but is only eligible to play official matches for 2 of them. So that would tend to suggest that what Adam said is correct there, although it does say that the exceptions can be made for specific tournaments like the Club World Cup, FIFA Club World Cup of last summer.
Yeah, so
that's where we are with that.
Yeah, so maybe Alain couldn't play if he were to move to another club in the window. Let's talk about Exeter and Newcastle then, because Adam, is the FA Cup and League Cup now a welcome distraction? And I mean that in the way that you could argue that right now the last thing this team needs is a high energy League Cup semi-final against Newcastle after a potential banana skin in the FA Cup.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, the FA Cup, I think I've said this stat before on this podcast, but I think it's never been a distraction. It's always been something City go through the motions very well in. Pep has only ever been knocked out of the FA Cup once that is not at Wembley, and that was against Wigan Athletic in the 17-18 season. Other than that, we've always gone out of this competition at Wembley, so we go pretty far in it. And I think the good thing is despite how depleted our squad is, will be able to probably get away with rotating reasonably heavily for this one. So that is one thing we can get away with. Yeah. St James's Park is a different story entirely. I think that one, given it's a 2-legged tie, I think we've got to be fairly pragmatic going into this one. Got to
get out of there with what you can.
Yeah, genuine. We can't be going there. You even look at last night, Newcastle beating Leeds 4-3. Newcastle are not in the best of form at the moment, but at home, they tend to find a way, and the crowd do genuinely play a part. They are a bit of a 12th man. It's not a cliche. And they raise their game against the bigger sides, particularly against City in recent seasons. So I expect us to lose that one. I just think we've got to lose it within a margin that makes it tenable, that we can turn it round at the Etihad. So, defence first at Newcastle, Exeter. We should probably see Elaine again in the team, and then probably not Semenyo. That's probably a little bit too soon, but just a few more rotation players in there.
Yeah,
maybe Mikasa comes in and we should be fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, John, if you were on comms for the game against Exeter, would you now be researching kind of the 16-year-olds at City just in case?
Yep, for sure, that's definite. And I think that it's like this. It's this delicious balance that there is for Manchester City now, and the same applies to Arsenal as well, because they're obviously in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup as well. You know, that question about, would it be better if you weren't there? But you know, clearly they want to win trophies.
Yeah, you want to be there, don't you? Yeah,
you want to be. You do. You know, the alternative there to that is having been knocked out, and you want to. While you are chasing success on all fronts, I think that's always a good thing. I think that always helps to breed confidence. The fact that you're still going in every competition, then there is that possibility that, you know, there could be 1, 2, or more trophies in a season. I think that helps the hunger and the level of performance.
You can listen to the show ad-free by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
What do you think Guardiola should do for this Exeter game in particular? Because they've picked up form in the last couple of games. They play fairly expansive football in League One. They quite like possession. Obviously, it's a tough challenge for them coming to the Etihad, but there's so many of those first-team names for City that need some rest. So, like, if he were to turn to the academy, it does make the risk of an upset a lot higher. But is that a risk worth taking, do you think?
Well, I tell you what's an interesting one, in that with the FA Cup as it is now, which is, as we know, spread over the number of days that it is and the wide variety of kickoff times, the fact that I think that's only, is it 9 or 10 matches kicking off at 3:00 on a Saturday. So we at 5 Live BBC Radio Sports had a bit of a discussion over which match it was that would be our principal commentary match on Saturday at 3:00. In fact, we've chosen Fulham Middlesbrough. Personally, I think Manchester City Exeter is the choice. I think that's got more of the FA Cup third round about it. And I know City are at home and should win handsomely. But I think that given the team that we'll probably see put out by Manchester City, you know, I think Exeter would have to have a chance in that match. Strange though it is to say it.
Yeah. Adam, are you nervous about this one for that reason?
No, not really. Maybe that's just from Pavlovian conditioning of 20 years of success growing up and watching us
blind faith,
teams aside. Yeah. I mean, what was this round last time? It was Salford City, wasn't it, last year? And that was it 8-0 or something like that?
Yeah.
And there was heavy rotation in that game. Look, anything can happen, but I'm not prepared to even entertain the idea, given how much money we've spent and the fact that we've, allegedly got the best academy in the country, which I believe we do. We should have players of the quality to come into that side and win this game, even if it's 2 or 3-0. So, yeah, look, it's the magic of the FA Cup. It's the cliche, and it does ring true sometimes. We've seen it before, but honestly, serious questions will have to be asked, David, if City get knocked out to Exeter City. Yeah, I do think that.
However, I think it is not ridiculous to think that there is a point in that match where Exeter could be in front.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I think that makes it, a potentially, if you're out and about on Saturday afternoon, not at that match, and you hear that Exeter City are winning at Manchester City, then that is one where you are making a beeline to follow that match.
100%. Yeah. I remember a few years back, it was Port Vale who took the lead, I think, at the Etihad. In the 18-19 season. I think we went to win the FA Cup that year, but I think Harwood Bellis is at centre-back. But I do recall Port Vale going 1-up quite early on.
Yeah,
and it ended 4-1, but there you go.
Yeah. And there's nothing, honestly, I'm telling you, there's nothing like seeing the effect that a potential massive embarrassment has on the bigger club when it's unfolding in front of them. That, you know, speaking to someone who's been in that position as a neutral many, many times, it is highly entertaining.
The number of times, John, where back in the day, City were the underdog in these ties.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowadays, and when you look at it, you think there's no way City could win in this. They either batter the minnow or they get knocked out by the minnow, and everyone goes well, and everyone hates them either way. So like it doesn't. There's no good way to do it.
But it comes in the, you know, for City, it comes in the middle of when they've had this frustrating run. They know that tie against Newcastle, that first leg, is coming up next week, and it's Old Trafford after that, isn't it? So, as I always say, one of the great things in sport that has always been the case is that you just cannot let your guard drop. You know, there cannot be complacency, and yet the very, very best teams, same as everyone else, are susceptible to complacency.
Yeah, it's true. Now, after the week that we've had with the 3 draws and the mood, I'd say the mood being a little bit downbeat, I thought we needed a bit of fun in this podcast. So, to that end,
it's time for a game of Manchester City in the FA Cup. True or false?
Really simple one, this one. City's FA Cup campaign kicks off this weekend against a brand new team, as we've already discussed, and City are always an interesting club. There's always some sort of trivia around them. So which of these weird and wonderful statements are true, and which ones have I simply made up? John, as our guest, I'm going to let you decide. Would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
First, okay. There are 6 options. Pick a number, 1 to 6.
Number 4.
Number 4, okay. Manchester City played in the last FA Cup final before Abide With Me was sung before the game. True or false?
I'm going to say, I do know when that was, and I'm going to say false.
It's true. They lost the game 1-0 to Bolton in 1926. Abide With Me before every final since 1927. There you go.
That's right, because it was Cardiff 1927, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember that being said that was the first one where it was sung.
Yeah, 1-0 Bolton in the 1926 final. They beat City. So no points there. Adam, over to you. 1, 2, 3, or 5 or 6 available.
I'll go for number 2.
Number 2, okay. True or false? Manchester City are the only team to have lost an FA Cup final to a team that shares its name with a venue where they've won an FA Cup final.
Oh,
get your head around that one.
Oh, their venue. That right? Do you know what? The words that have just come out of your mouth sound too specific to not be true.
Yeah,
so
you're
I'll
right.
say
It's true.
Yeah,
you're right. It's true.
There you go.
Crystal Palace, the only team that shares its name with a venue where the FA Cup final has been held, and obviously last season Palace won their first FA Cup against City. So 1-0 to Adam. John, over to you. 1, 3, 5, or 6 available.
6 this time.
Number 6, okay. True or false? Manchester City were the first team to ever use a 4th substitute in the FA Cup.
I'm going to say true.
It is true. Kelechi Iheanacho replacing Raheem Sterling again in extra time against Arsenal in the 2017 semi-final. 1-1. Adam, over to you. What number are you having? You've got 1, 3, or 5.
I'll go with number 3.
Number 3, okay. No team has come back to win an FA Cup tie in 90 minutes from a bigger deficit at half-time than Manchester City. True or false?
Well, that has to be the Tottenham game. It would stand out if someone's done it from 4 down, surely. Okay, I'll say true. I will say true.
It is true. 3-0 at half-time against Spurs, 4-3 winners in 2004. Tranmere also did it against Southampton in 2001. And I'll let John, as our neutral, I'll let you decide whether City's was a better comeback or not. Because City were a Premier League side against a Premier League side, but had 10 men. Tranmere were a Championship side against a Premier League side, had 11 men, and were at home.
I do remember the Tranmere match as well, which was also a classic. But I think if I remember rightly, there was a lot more to the Manchester City match as well. So yeah, I think it does go down as one of the great FA Cup ties.
Yeah, correct answer. It's certainly the City's the better comeback. So 2-1, Adam. John, that leaves you with question number 1 or question number 5.
1.
Number 1, okay. True or false? No current Premier League side won the FA Cup earlier than Manchester City.
I'm going to say false to that.
That is false, correct.
I'm thinking Aston Villa.
Aston Villa, Wolves, Nottingham Forest and Spurs, yeah. All won it before City. City's first in 1904, Villa in 1887. There you go. So even before City existed. So there you go. Adam, that leaves you with the chance to make it 3 out of 3 with question number 5. No team has more years between their first and most recent FA Cup final appearance than City.
Oh. So I would wager City's first appearance was probably the 1904 FA Cup final. I might be wrong. And then obviously most recent was last year. So... God,
can anybody do better than 121 years?
Yeah,
that's the question.
That's a big margin, isn't it? I'll say that's true. That's true.
It's false. It's Villa. Villa, 128 years, yeah.
Do you know what? I just thought Villa then, because obviously John just said it. It was Villa who got to the semi-finals and they got knocked out by Liverpool, didn't they? Because they had... Oh, no. Hang on. When did Villa last get to an FA Cup final?
They were thrashed, weren't they, by Arsenal?
Arsenal, yeah. That was, yeah. And then was the most recent one in the 1800s before that?
It was 1887.
Wow. So they didn't get to an FA Cup final in the whole of the 20th century?
Oh, no. It's first and most recent. So, like, it was
first and most recent.
Yeah, okay, longest period between first and most recent.
Okay, I'll stop contesting it now.
Yeah, there you go. So it finishes 2-2, and typically I didn't write a tie-break, so nobody's a winner, which
is an honourable draw.
Fitting for this week, really, I guess. Another draw.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast, and we're very sorry about that.
Right, before we get into predictions, we're going to hear now from, we're going to get a view from the opposition for this weekend. I've been speaking to John from the Big Bank Theory podcast about Exeter's season so far.
It's been a funny old one, David, to be honest. We're a trust-owned club, so supporters essentially finance the team entirely. There's no outside investment at all. And we've always kind of trundled along feeling like this was really positive, so it's been a trust-owned club for 20 plus years. And then there was this great big revelation in the summer that maybe things weren't as good as we thought they were. Finances were maybe, I don't know, various kind of staff members had kept us in the dark about things, and the kind of narratives kind of slowly unravelled to a point where in about November, loads of resignations happened, and we were told, like, you might not even make it to the end of the season. Like, so sorry about that, we didn't know, kind of thing. So it's been this weird kind of, we've always thought, well, football doesn't really matter. At least we've still got our football club. And then, mid-autumn, we were suddenly like, are we not even legit anymore? Is this going to be, passing buckets round and all that? So that was really strange. But weirdly, alongside that, the football, which has generally been fairly dull under our current manager, Gary Caldwell, suddenly has turned into like this free-flowing, everything clicks, where all these players who look like kind of journeymen who couldn't kind of string much together are suddenly looking like world beaters. So we've had this kind of weird like dichotomy of the club may not survive soon, but the football's as good as you ever remember. So it's been weird on that level. And then obviously with the draw with Man City, suddenly like, well, maybe the money woes will go into the background a bit with this injection of cash. And then some other kind of stuff around players that we'd sold. I think some of the bigger clubs advanced us some of the money sooner. So hopefully the money issue isn't as much as we thought it was. And yeah, football's been really good. So we're feeling positive, actually.
Yeah, in a weird sense, would it have been better for this tie to have been at your place rather than coming up to the Etihad?
Well, I suppose it would have got televised. Like, there's all these people on fans forums kind of trying to do the maths of what the ultimate best scenario was for us. The sale of 50,000 plus tickets is obviously really useful, split 50-50 with Exeter. We only have fit 8,000 into our ground. So, I think probably on balance, the ticket sales 50-50 split from the Etihad will help us more. Obviously, it's not televised, which means there's none of that cash. We just hope that we beat you and then we get another big draw in the fourth round and then we'll be laughing.
Yeah, on that front, the form this season, like you say, it's kind of been a bit up and down. It looked kind of back in the autumn time that it was going to be a tough season, but then you look at recent runs. Came from behind twice against Huddersfield, beaten Luton, beaten AFC Wimbledon in the last 3 games. How have the team been playing right now?
Yeah, it's really good actually. Like it felt like even when results weren't going our way, that this was good football and it was going to click soon. We brought in a striker called Jaden Wareham, who's I think he's now got 11 for the season. Like it's really clicking. Some of our midfielders have come back. So Reece Cole's a really interesting story. Was Brentford academy player. Really, everything kind of fell apart for him, and he was playing not just non-league but kind of semi-professional and working on his brother's football coaching company. And then we picked him up. Gary Caldwell knew him from Scotland. And he's been a revelation, and he's a bit injury prone. So he's come back and he's banging the goals in again. So everything just feels like it's clicked at the minute. That Huddersfield game, it used to be, if you went back 12 months, if we ever went behind in a game, that was it, we were done for. But yeah, went behind twice to Huddersfield, came back. Obviously, they're a much bigger club than we are and pushing for promotion. So yeah, I think form-wise, we're now where we kind of feel like we should be, like getting results most of the time. We lost to Cardiff on Boxing Day, but even that, and they're kind of runaway league leaders, we could have got some in. So yeah, it's pretty good from our point of view. Obviously, we're hoping that nothing goes too drastically wrong on Saturday to kind of break the flow of it, really.
Just looking at the League One table, currently sitting in 14th. What's the aims for this season? Because as you say, if it's been a kind of a turbulent start to the season, it is only 9 points to the playoffs, but there's a lot of teams between you and there, and at the same time, it feels like there's a bit of a cushion towards the bottom of the table as well.
It's pretty tight, isn't it? I think when we were sitting in the relegation zone or just outside, the teams below us were teams we'd expect to be pushing up at top of the league. So Plymouth Argyle, Peterborough, I think Reading were down there at the time. We felt like, this isn't looking good. Everything below us is going to pick up, and but actually Port Vale, Burton are kind of slipping down. We always feel like survival in League One is our hope. Like we don't expect more than that. Coldwell's guided us to, I think, 13th, 14th and 15th in the last 3 seasons. I think the way we're playing, I would expect us that we could get, lower end of the top half if we carry on like this. The big question is who will get sold in the January window. If we lose Wareham, or if we lose Reece Cole, or one of our brilliant centre backs, that may upset the apple cart a bit. But survival's always the target. We've only ever been a League One club. That's our highest ever. I think 8th in League One is our highest ever position. The general narrative is we're a League Two club, but I think now it's all kind of coming out in the wash, and probably League One is our standard. I think if we ever went to the Championship, we'd really struggle because there's no external money, and we only get 8,000 max to a home game. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the players, because you've mentioned Wareham a few times. If he's the talisman, who are the players that are likely to do the damage if you are to cause an upset this weekend?
We've got this winger called Ilmari Niskanen, who's Finnish lad, as in not finished, done, but like from Finland, and he came to us from Dundee, and he's a lovely lad. Like really goes out of his way to embrace the supporters, and he always comes across so well in interviews. He's got a lot of endeavour, and until this season you'd say he was 90% endeavour. Something's clicked, and every cross he puts in you think something's happening here. He's got pace, he seems to have boundless energy, so I think if he has a good game, he may manage to achieve something. Reece Cole's also an absolute star, really. Midfielder, centre midfielder, can score from anywhere, good with the ball at his feet. One of those kind of languid players, strolls around the middle of the field, does loads of good. And then Jake Doyle-Hayes is another player we picked up. I think he came from Cove in Ireland, previously been in the north in Scotland. Curious thing about Jake Doyle-Hayes, he was at Hibernian, and the manager at the time injured him in training, like as in tackled him and injured him, and he's currently suing that manager for like, he was out for like 2 years and had to go back to Ireland and all that. So Jake Doyle-Hayes, I'd watch out for him. He's the Declan Rice kind of person, you know. He strolls around and he puts in the tackles when necessary, but also has got a real range of passing. So those are three to watch out for, apart from Wareham. Yeah.
How do you think Gary Caldwell will approach this game? Because just looking at City for a minute, City are in an interesting place right now where they've had the same sort of 11, 12 players playing game after game after game after game. There's a lot of injuries in the squad, and right. It's a very real possibility that the City team that gets named on Saturday contains a lot of youth academy products and a lot of players, just to give a lot of those senior players some rest. Is there a chance that he comes to the Etihad and goes, we're going to play Exeter City's way, we're going to keep the ball like as we've been playing in recent games, and we're going to take the game to this lot and see what happens?
Yeah, I think he's proved himself. Like I don't think he likes it. We've come up with a few nicknames for him. We called him the tea bag because he's always good in the cup. We called him Gamiroquai because you can always expect him to be in the hat, which he didn't seem to get. But anyway, we liked that one. But he's up for a big game. Like, he really is. He sees himself as someone who should be kind of fighting it out with, not Pep maybe, but some better managers in the country. So he'll be really up for it. He'll think we can do something. It'll be half-time. Can we keep it damage to a minimum till half-time? Can we keep damage to a minimum to 60? He'll be thinking like that, and then see if we can do the damage. We've got some quite good players that will come off the bench. There's a player called Akeel Higgins, who's got a lot of pace and a bit of trickery, and I'd imagine he'll come off on 75 minutes if we're still in it and see what he can do. We play with three centre-backs and wing-backs, and our centre-backs have been very formidable. I think we've got the best defensive record in League One this year. Shout out to Piers Sweeney, for your listeners, who's been at Exeter City for 10 years. He brilliant, like, what is he? He always looks like this is his level, and, you know, he'll get us to the next level and then maybe he'll drop away, and he's never dropped away. He's always increased his standards. So he came to us in non-league, I think, but certainly bottom of League Two, and then, you know, it's just built up to be such an integral part of the team. So our three centre-backs, him, Jack Fitzwater, and probably he'll start with Ed Turns. They'll just be sitting deep, nodding everything away. It'll be quite it won't be a very interesting game, I don't think, if Caldwell's plan kind of works, because that's what he'll be thinking.
Yeah. Well, John, we have a charity bet coming up a bit later on in the show. I like to give my prediction over to the guests. So what scoreline are you going for? How do you think the game will go, and what's your scoreline for this one?
I think realistically it will be 3-0 Man City. But my heart says, if we're watching the clock at 70 minutes and it's still 0-0, maybe we could do something. Maybe we could. We're well aware of who we're playing and where we're going. And, you know, there's no, like, come to our place and be, you know, have the fans really close to you. There's none of that. So there's kind of nothing in our favour, except that the players will be really up for it and the manager will be really up for it. So I think we'll probably keep it at 0-0 or 1-0 till half time, and then probably the floodgates will open a bit. So 3-0 is my prediction. But, you know, as a hopeful man, maybe we can sneak something, maybe.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. But don't worry, it'll be over soon.
That was John from the Big Bank Theory. This news didn't break until after I'd spoken to John. But Exeter City Supporters Trust, which, as we were saying in there, owns the League One club, they've asked City to give a greater share of the gate receipts from Saturday's FA Cup third round tie. John, what do you make of this? Because it's obviously it's a delicate issue. It's a noble thing that City would do, but it would also open the gates for others to ask the same.
It would. And is that something that shouldn't happen? Is what I would respond to in that way. And I think it's come, hasn't it, off the back of Crystal Palace making the gesture to Macclesfield, which is the match that I'm going to be commentating on Saturday, which I know has gone down incredibly well with Macclesfield in the position that they're in. And, you know, I think the backdrop with Exeter City, of course, is the fact that famously they were probably saved, weren't they, by the income that they got from the FA Cup tie against Manchester United. And, you know, that was obviously in the days of replays. You know, is it something that Manchester City and the biggest clubs should do as a matter of course anyway, I suppose, is the question to ask.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be a lovely world if they did?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Adam, the other side of this, I guess, is there is a difference between doing it voluntarily, which I don't see a problem with City doing, but it's the kind of, there's a statement been made and it's been put out there in public, and it's kind of now a little bit of public pressure for City to do it. Like, I've seen a lot from Exeter fans that they're not really happy that the Supporters Trust has done this.
I think, given the almost pyramid structure of English football right now and how top heavy it is in favour of the Premier League, I would be all for that. Why would Exeter fans not want that? Would be my question.
I think they would rather have the request been made in public, made in private. Sorry.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, maybe that's understandable, but I don't see why they wouldn't want that, because it's beneficial to them. It's beneficial to them. It doesn't seem like something. It doesn't seem like a very Soriano move if he's getting involved and trying to sanction that. That doesn't seem like something he'd be too interested in doing if he has a say in that. But I think generally, like John said, the world would be a better place from a moral standpoint in that situation to sort of help out the lower clubs. That's what I think more teams need to be doing in more ways to make the game a bit more sustainable in this country. So yeah, I'd be all for that. I thought for a second there I was going to have Exeter fans sat next to me. I kind of misread what you said.
No, don't worry about that.
I wouldn't want that. You'd have a riot on your hands.
No, John. There is an element of this as well, I guess, where you look at what has happened to the FA Cup in recent years with the reduction in the number of replays and then the scrapping of replays and everything being focused towards the number of games that the top teams play. I mean, this could have been part of the deal. This could have been, okay, well, if you're going to get rid of replays, then lower sides get more share of the gate receipts.
And largely the reason given for that was the fact that the expansion of European football means fewer midweeks. Therefore, it wasn't possible to fit replays into the schedule, and they wanted to make it, the FA, a level playing field so that, you know, if you're playing in Europe, you cannot fit it into your schedule. And which teams are playing in Europe? It's the biggest clubs. So a gesture from those biggest clubs, those European clubs, to the teams that are going to suffer from the fact there are no replays financially, would have been a utopian way of dealing with it, wouldn't it?
But here we are. So we'll see what happens there. Time to turn to the charity bets. Disappointing results left, right and centre this week, but at least one of them got us a win on the charity bets. Brighton fan Ryan Adset correctly predicted Wednesday's 1-1 draw. So we're now on £280 raised for the season. It's quite it's been a slow start to the charity bet this season. We are getting there a little bit by bit. William Hill has given us three £10 correct score singles, and the winnings are going to the Man City Fans Food Bank Support Group. They'll be back collecting on Saturday under the bridge near Asda up until about 2:30 p.m. We've heard already that John has gone for a 3-0 City win against Exeter. That's 13-2 and £65 if he's right. Adam, what are you having for this?
I'll double it. 6-0.
Double it to 6. Doesn't quite double it on the odds. It's 12-1 and £120 if you're right. John, what are you having for City against Exeter?
I'm going to go, because of the fact that I've already floated the possibility of Exeter scoring, I'm going to go for 4-1 Manchester City.
4-1 Manchester City is 150-1. So it will add a nice £1,500 to the kitty if you're right there, which would be our biggest ever win. So fingers crossed you are right. Adam, what are you having for Newcastle? Because you wanted as long as it's a tight defeat, you're happy with it being a defeat. So what are you going for?
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Newcastle, same as it was in the league. And for the record, I do think we'll turn it around at the Etihad. But for the time being, in leg one, I think Newcastle will pip us 2-1 because we'll have to rotate a little bit still, I think.
Yeah, not the end of the world, is it? A 2-1 defeat, 10-1, and £100 if you're right. John, what's tickling your fancy for this one?
I think it's a tricky one, this. But I'm going to go for a narrow Manchester City win. I think Newcastle 1, Manchester City 2. That's
7-1 and £70 if you're right. I'm more on the pessimistic side, as the last week has shown, and I'm siding with Adam on this one. I wanted 2-1, but Adam got there first, and I will be gracious and bow out of the way. So I've gone 2-0 to Newcastle, which is 18-1 and £180 if I'm right. Remember, you've got to be 18 or over to gamble. Prices can change, and for information on responsible gambling, have a look at gambleaware.org. We are going to squeeze in some listener questions at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky is the way to get in touch. You can email us, contact@bluemoonpodcast.com, and you can search for us on Instagram as well. Just search for Blue Moon Podcast there. Jonathan has been in touch on the emails to say, would moves for Antoine Semenyo and Mark Gahey, as we're led to believe will happen, fix the current issues? Guardiola rarely throws new players in, so would he make an exception this season? And John, as we've touched on with Max Elaine, he threw him in and that went okay. Guardiola bought a lot of players last January, and then didn't use them up until the start of this season. So what would be different about Semenyo and Gahey if they came in?
I think the fact that, listen, Mark Gahey is an absolute top-level player, and in my opinion, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go to, whether it's Manchester City this month, wherever it is that he goes to, if he doesn't go to the very top of the game. You know, I'm seeing him as captain of the club that he goes to at some stage, possibly an England captain as well. And, you know, absolutely in the groove, rarely misses a match. He plays instantly. And I think to a lesser degree, but similarly, the same applies to Semenyo. You know, he is playing regularly, scoring regularly. You play him.
Yeah. Obviously, as City were hunting a last-minute goal on Wednesday night, Adam, Antoine Semenyo went and got one. He couldn't have arrived a couple of days early, could he?
It was a shot from range as well, which would be nice to see from a few more folk in this team. Yeah, look, I think, like you said at the start then, David, it's not the first time City have spent in January. Sometimes there's been market opportunities like Aymeric Laporte. Last season, the world was on fire and we needed 4 faces in, which was a bit different. But I think this time, Semenyo and Gahey are big hitters. They're A-grade players. They're first in class. They will come straight into the starting 11. You look at who Gahey's going to replace, it's probably John Stones, if I'm honest. I think Pep had quite a almost despondent answer to Stones in his most recent press conference before Brighton, almost like he's disassociated with him as a part of the team, which is quite sad to see. But I think you can tell a lot from Pep's tone rather than what he says when he answers these kind of questions. And it was almost like, reading between the lines, it was almost like, I don't care anymore when they asked him about Stones' fitness. So I think we're probably going to see the end of Stones. Gahey's a like for like. And completely agree with John. He is a future England captain, comes straight into the starting 11. I think he's probably better than Ruben Diaz as well, if I'm being perfectly honest.
That's a shout. Diaz has been playing really well.
he has, but I think Gahey's so complete. And then as for Semenyo, we've been crying out for a ball-striking wide player who can play off Haaland, play on the left or the right. Savino's final action is awful, and we've not even touched on him today. He is not good enough right now. Oscar Bob, that leg break did do him no favours, and he's more of a central player now. We got Cherki and Foden. We need these players in terms of building this squad, in terms of the holes that they fill within this squad. I think it gets lazily chucked around that City just spend money for the sake of spending money. That is not the case. City is still in a transition. They still need these players. They still need these A-grade players if we're to get back to where we were. You know, we were talking about that 2018 team, that treble-winning team. Pep knows this. So they're both necessities, and I'm really happy with them. And I just think, what I will say is if Semenyo had have started the previous 3 games in the league, I think we win at least one of them.
Needs more goals from the wide areas. You know, Semenyo's got the capability of providing that. And I think with John Stones as well, I think with Guardiola, personally, I think that's more upset because I know he absolutely loves John Stones, doesn't he? And I think the feeling that he's just not able to call on his services and knowing what it is that he's missing out through not having John Stones. And I do worry a little bit there as well. If you remember before Christmas when he was with us with England, he was talking about how he was so frustrated that he nearly packed up the game last season. And, so I do worry about where he is really at the moment, because he is such a good guy.
Yeah, and especially when you see him playing the role he did in that treble-winning side, to see him not be able to get onto the pitch is devastating. Speaking of devastating, this is probably more one for you, Adam. So I'll throw it to you first. Dan's been in touch on Instagram to say, what's the most heartbreaking last-minute equaliser you've seen? No last-minute winners here, please. And this comes off the back of Chelsea having stolen a point from the Etihad. So, Adam, John, I'll let you have a little bit of a think. It doesn't need to be City-specific for you, but Adam, I'm going to insist that you are City-specific in your heartbreak of a last-minute equaliser.
Yeah. Well, I've had a long and hard think about this, and my answer is on a technicality, so I want to ask you two if it applies.
Okay.
So I would go for Rodrigo's goal at the Bernabeu, but the second one, because technically that made it 3-3 on aggregate. So is that an equaliser? I know Real Madrid went 2-1 up, but that is an equaliser in terms of the tie, because it took us to extra time. So I'm saying that counts. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a more devastating one than that, given that a goal followed it a minute prior, and a minute prior to that, we were 2 goals up on Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final. And I was in the ground.
I don't know if I've ever told this story on the podcast, but that evening when I watched that game, like the equaliser happened, as you say, and then extra time happened and City lost. And my partner opened the door to the living room and said, "I'm going to bed. Are you coming up?" And I thought I'd said, "No, I just need a few minutes to process this." And apparently, I'd just said absolutely nothing and just stared completely, like just at the TV, just completely shell shocked at what happened. That's how heartbreaking that last minute equaliser was. And I'd had 30 minutes to deal with it.
Yeah, I think I've told the story before, but I was working for City on that match day, and I was in the press box, which in the Bernabeu, it's 4 tiers up, but it feels like it's 10 tiers up. It feels like you're in the clouds, and you have to get an elevator down to the mix zone at the end to do the post-match interviews. So I think, right, I'll get ahead of the curve here. It's 88 minutes. We're in cruise control. I was like, right, rub my hands. I was like, right, perfect. Go speak to Pep, and it would have been Fernandinho or something. So I get in the elevator, and it's 1-0 to City. I don't hear anything. And then as I get to the bottom of the elevator, and it's quite a long journey, I was waiting for it. It takes me down. It felt like there'd been like an earthquake, like the ground was shaking. It felt like something had like gone wrong. And then I come out into the car park on the ground floor where the interviews are, and I just see 2 stewards on top of each other, just like screaming. I was like, what's going on here? And then the telly, there was a little telly that was just in the corner. And I looked at the score and it just said 2-1. So I couldn't really fathom I didn't see it in real time. I was in the ground, but missed it. And I couldn't make sense of it until I got back to the hotel, sat down, and then gone, Jesus Christ, that really happened. But yeah, that was deflating. That was deflating.
Yeah. Enzo Fernandez is nothing in comparison, is it? And I mean, in fairness as well, John, I know you were commentating on the Chelsea game. The one I felt sorry for in that Enzo Fernandez equaliser was Donnarumma. The save before it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. For my answer to this, I've got a little bit of a twist on this, because it's FA Cup weekend, and to try and curry favour, the one that is absolutely heartbreaking is not a last-minute equaliser. It's a last-minute winner that wasn't given, which was the FA Cup semi-final between Manchester United and Coventry, which is one of the great cup ties that I've commentated on. Do you remember Victor Torp scored the goal that would have won it 4-3? But VAR ruled it out for a marginal offside. And I have to say, having no connection with Coventry City and no axe to grind with Manchester United, I felt for them so much that they didn't win that match. It would have been incredible.
Yeah, I think that qualifies as devastating for City fans as well.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Was that on the year United beat City in the final? So yeah,
it was.
Yeah, I would much rather have faced Coventry. You're right. If we've missed your most heartbreaking equaliser, then let us know at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky. You can email contact@bluemoonpodcast.com as well. That is it for today's episode. Thank you very much to my guests for this one, Adam Monk.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
And John Murray.
Thanks, David.
There is a clip coming up in a moment of this week's Nostalgia episode. That was City fan Andy McNabb inducting Nicholas Otamendi into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame. If you want to hear the full thing now, just head on over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com. I'll be back next week after the games with Exeter and Newcastle. See you then.
That was the Blue Moon Podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon. You'll also get an extra episode each Monday. Here's a clip of this week's.
He's always done this salute when he's scored a goal. He's always done the salute, and it's the previous clubs he's been at. That somewhere along the line, somebody's called him the General because he salutes the crowd when he's scored a goal. So that's apparently where it comes from. That on Old Trafford was obviously, well, for me, I love that one. Any win at United is great, isn't it? But I think, but we battered them that day, and I don't think we were getting anywhere, really. And I think it was one of those frustrating games where, we would control the midfield, we played really well, but we just, United was sat in with Mourinho, weren't they? And so he sort of liked to pop up, because I think the first one was, both goals were a bit scruffy, weren't they? David Silva was like from 6 yards out, a volley, but only from 6 yards out. And then the other, and his was, I think it come off the back of Anders Herrera or something, did it?
I thought Lukaku. Did Lukaku block it? And then
it could have been him,
he basically fell to him in the box and he went, I'm having this.
Yeah, and basically he just smashed it in and then ran off to us in the away end and did his salute, the sliding salute. So I don't know what a sliding salute is. I've never seen a general slide on his knees before, but I did that day.
You can listen to more of that at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. And join us again next time for another episode.